Rain clawed at the crooked roof of the Ashvale boarding house as if begging to be let inside. The windows wept condensation, and the wallpaper curled like dying leaves, revealing yellowed plaster beneath. Eliza stood by the staircase, clutching a fractured teacup in her hands, not because she had been drinking from it, but because it had been left outside her door that morning, warm to the touch despite the house having no central heat since 1979. She had come to Ashvale because it was cheap and forgotten, the sort of place no one asked questions if you paid in cash and didn't pry about the shadows that moved differently after dark. Her room, the one at the end of the third floor hall, always smelled faintly of scorched sugar and meat. She'd told herself it was the insulation, old things molting in the walls. That was before the whispering began. It started with the floorboards, not the usual creaking of aged timber, but subtle clicks, like claws tapping in rhythm beneath the floor. At night, she would lay in bed and feel it. A faint vibration, almost like breathing from somewhere under the floor, directly beneath her mattress. She reported it to the caretaker, Mr. Thatch, a man whose eyes never seemed to blink in sync. He listened with a vague smile that didn't touch his eyes, muttered something about this house having memories, then offered her a jar of lemons as if that were any kind of solution. That night, she tossed and turned until the walls themselves seemed to pulse, a low thrum, interspersed with soft, dragging sounds like someone shifting their body along the baseboards. It was then the voice whispered her name, so faint it could have been the sigh of the wind, but close. Personal. She tried to record it, even left her phone overnight beneath the bed, facing the floor. In the morning, the device was shattered into fine glass splinters, its casing bent inward as if crushed by fingers too large for the modern world. Silence became oppressive during daylight, as if the house held its breath when the sun reached through the bent slats in the blinds. Eliza began to notice the tenants' eyes following her too long, their doorframes shrouded in shadow while they stood just behind them, half visible, listening. One particularly gray morning, she watched as Mrs. Donnelly, a mute woman in a turban, carried an armful of soil-soaked dolls wrapped in lace and gently placed them along the hallway's edge like an offering. Their beaded eyes turned toward Eliza as she passed, and she swore she heard plastic mouths flutter open and shut when her back was turned. The third-floor hallway grew longer at night, she was sure of it. Each time she returned from the shared restroom, the journey back to her room stretched unnaturally, the wallpaper patterns warping into something more biological, almost vein-like. On a particularly sleepless night, she dared peer through the keyhole of room 3F, the one always locked from the inside despite no tenant ever occupying it. Through the sliver, she saw a chair, overturned, and movement on the far wall. Not a person but a shifting of color, like a shadow trying to remember how to be solid. A sudden, hard knock erupted behind her, and when she turned, no one stood there. Only the scent of molasses and copper remained, clinging to her like breath exhaled too close to the skin. On the seventh night, Eliza awoke to find her mattress had shifted, not slightly, but dragged 3 feet toward the center of the room, perfectly aligned with a growing crack in the hardwood. The crack pulsed, not metaphorically. It flexed, as if a heartbeat lived deep within it. Everything in her screamed to flee, but her limbs wouldn't obey. Across the room, the mirror was fogged, though no heat source had touched it. Tracing on the glass with an unseen finger, not hers, formed the words, "You are feeding it." Her breath hitched, eyes watering, and slowly, inevitably, she looked down to see that her fingernails were dark crimson, nails packed with earth she hadn't touched, legs stained with mildew and something blacker soaking through the hem. By the time Eliza was found, weeks later, the boarding house had been condemned for reasons the city failed to disclose. A construction crew demolishing the decaying structure reported that the third floor couldn't be accessed, not by stair, rope, or even knocking the walls down. Tools splintered, doors vanished. Several workers quit after one man claimed he'd heard sobbing beneath the floor, just under his boots, and felt something brushing the soles as if asking to be let out. Ashvale was eventually bulldozed, but those who pass by where it once stood say the ground there never settles. It sinks slightly, month by month, as though absorbing what still writhes beneath, and if the wind's just right, you can hear the click of claws moving across unseen timber. And maybe, if you stop walking and listen, you'll hear a voice from beneath the soil murmur a name not your own, but one you'll answer to just the same.